Hey everybody, I'm Hugh Brownstone for Three Blind Men and an Elephant. Today, I want to talk about what just may be the ultimate GH5 based rig. Now, if you're watching this, you most likely have either bought or are thinking of buying a Panasonic GH5. And yay, it's an incredible piece of kit. My 2017 Camera of the Year, Nikon's D850 notwithstanding. Though I have to admit the D850 is the first Nikon since the F Photomic that I've actually wanted to get my hands on. But another story for another time. Anyway, context for this. The reason the GH5 was my 2017 pick for Camera of the Year is, well, you know this. It has unmatched video capabilities at the price, $2,000, with class-leading in-body image stabilization, 10-bit 422, 400 megabit per second, all internal recording, dual card slots, mature touch interface with one of the best menu systems out there, variable frame rates, including 60 frames per second at 4K, a stellar and underrated viewfinder, a lens mount that can take just about any lens with adapters, a novel and very usable software-controlled rack focus, a raft of video assists including peaking, waveforms, and more. And it's even a pretty great stills camera when you think about it. Wrapped inside what I believe are the best hybrid ergonomics in the industry. I think there's no better camera out there around which a hybrid shooter can build a system to do pretty much anything he or she wants. But as close as it comes, like everything else, including you and me as image makers and storytellers, it ain't perfect. Of course, I don't know your actual situation. You may be the kind of person for whom nothing but full frame will do. I understand. Or maybe you think anything less than 14 stops of dynamic range is for amateurs only. I get it. Maybe you have to have blazing fast AF. Okay, but for me, the single most glaring shortcoming of the GH5, in fact, all hybrid cameras, with the possible exceptions of the Panasonic GX8, the Leica TL series with VisoFlex, and Fujifilm's GFX50S with tilt adapter, is that it's difficult to work with in bright daylight on location from any angle other than straight ahead standing normally. And even then, I often find myself cupping the eyepiece with my hand. I'm just not a crouching tiger, hidden dragon, craning, squinting kind of guy. Yet some of the best shots I've ever taken, some of the best shots I've ever seen have come from the waist, by the feet, or overhead. To be clear, in the overall scheme of the human experience, crouching or squinting simply do not qualify as hardship. But when you're in the middle of a shoot, at that moment, nothing is more important. You want nothing to get in the way. And if you're like me, you're not particularly flexible physically or mentally. You want the shot. You want it right. You want it quick. And you want to move on to the next one ASAP. So I reached out to the good folks at Zacuto and Adamus to lend me some gear for our New Hampshire, Maine, and eastern tip of Long Island road trip to test the notion that properly rigged, the GH5 could be stellar anyway. I'll include a link below and I'm sure up here to our Open Road series. That's because I worked backward from the crouching tiger, hidden dragon, squinting solution, which for me begins with two pieces of kit. A high-performance, bright, sharp, articulable EVF like Zacuto's Gradical HD, although I'm not actually aware of another non-denominational unit quite like it, but if you are, please let me know in the comments section below. And a high-performance, crisp, daylight viewable 7-inch monitor like the Atomos Ninja Inferno, which just happens to have great recording capabilities as well. I like the idea of both because no matter how daylight viewable, a monitor will always play second banana to a great EVF, while that same EVF will always play second banana to a great daylight viewable monitor to check the scene or share the framing and blocking with the director. Each is stellar in its own right, but hold that thought because a couple of problems crop up immediately. First, how do you hang these two things on the large for micro four thirds but small for anything else GH5 body without running the risk of breaking off the hot shoe? I'm always worrying about that. or simply taking over the hot shoe when you may want to keep it open for the optional audio unit, a wireless lav receiver, or anything else. Second, how the heck do you power those two things when they suck on batteries like, well, you pick your analogy. And then there's this. If you can successfully answer the first two challenges, how do you do it without compromising the original value proposition of the GH5, which can be summed up as small, nimble, fast, multi-purpose, as in videos and stills, and cheap for what it is? Of course, it turns out that the last one is the sticky wicket, so hold that thought too while we get into the details of the killer setup we put together. First, the GH5 cage, the foundation upon which everything rests. Like all Zacuto gear, at least in my experience, it's built like a brick house. Or, as I said in my review last year when I compared the original Zacuto VCT baseplate to units from Sochler and Fotka, the VCT was a beast, in a good way. I'll put a link into that review down below and up here also. Like that VCT, there's no question that you can hang anything you might reasonably want on the Zacuto GH5 cage and not have to worry at all, which is number one on my list of must-have attributes. Now, interesting tidbit about this guy. While it looks and feels as if it were hewn from one piece, this Zacuto cage actually consists of more than half a dozen pieces, excluding the screws. A top plate, a bottom plate, a left front plate, a right front plate, a left side plate with NATO rail, a center NATO rail mated to the top plate, an arched right side expansion or extension mated to the top plate, and finally a quick release plate mated to the bottom plate, which matches to Zacuto's VCT tripod dock plate, which makes the solidity of the cage all the more impressive. But then again, at 2 to 4 times the price of most other GH5 cages, once you add in top handle, rod support, and left side handle, as may be required, it ought to be. I'm talking about cages from the likes of Tilta, Shape, Croziel, Varavon, Movcam, 8sin, and others. On the other hand, the cage from Zacuto comes in almost $150 less than Look Circle's Robot Skin Professional X kit, which, as best as I can tell, tops out the field at almost $1,100. But you get 3 things with the Zacuto cage that you don't get with the other guys. First, even if you buy Zacuto's bare necessities model for $470, you'll still get what I'll call the Zacuto feel, which can probably best be summed up by borrowing a phrase from that brilliant spy thriller, You Don't Mess with the Zohan. And that phrase is silky smooth. It's not just the solidity of the individually machined pieces. It's how everything works dynamically. When you loosen or tighten a Zacuto knob or lever, when you adjust an arm, the action feels damped, in the same way you'd think about ramping a dolly shot or focus pull. And when it's locked, it's locked. I've never experienced anything else quite like it in the accessories market, though. I wouldn't be surprised if they're out there at the top end that I know nothing about. Second, you get a gateway into the rest of the Zacuto lineup, but again, hold that thought because I'll discuss this more shortly. The third thing you'll get is the halo effect of, to whatever extent this is important to you and or your client, the Zacuto brand. I know you know what I'm talking about, although I like to think I'm past that point. Zacuto or not, I like that the cage and top handle combine to allow easy access to the top plate dials and plenty of room for the optional audio unit from Panasonic. No problem. The left side, NATO rail attached wooden grip with cold shoe is lovely. There's easy access to the battery door underneath. The rear LCD can swing out and swivel with ease. Although if you use the left side handle, it will obscure the view if you rotate 180 degrees, though I can't imagine you'd use a caged GH5 as a selfie machine. All of the left side ports are unimpeded. And the right side hand strap moves out of the way to allow ready access to the dual SD card slots. The whole thing, that it's just the cage, is feathery light. On the other hand, brick shit house or not, silky smooth or not, reputation or not. Yeah, I've got some nits with it. And really, it all boils down to one thing. The third challenge I mentioned a little bit earlier. Once you snug in a GH5 to the cage, you have to accept that you've turned into a pure video camera and left the hybrid goodness at home. You've turned it into something other than what it is. Now, every single cage does this to one extent or another, but there are 4 things in particular with the Zacuto cage I want to cover. 1. Like almost every other cage of which I'm aware, I mean, the land part is the only exception that I know of, there's no quick release plate inside the cage. So you cannot quickly extract the camera for either stills or, say, gimbal operation while leaving the rest of the setup intact on a tripod. To me, that's a big deal, as what I'd really like to do, my modus operandi, is just pop it out, attach my Peak Design strap or mount it to some other kind of support and get shooting either before or after I film. It's perfect, really, for behind the scenes, perfect for stills that I'll later likely incorporate into the timeline using a rostrum Ken Burns effect. Though, to be fair, a freaking iPhone would probably be just as good at least half the time. 2, this is exacerbated by 2 threaded holes, one on each side plate, which align perfectly with the camera's own strap lug holes and which, when used, really snug the GH5 into place. It's a very clever, very securing idea. It makes a great deal of sense in certain circumstances with certain shooters. But again, for someone like me, it runs contrary to the essence of what the GH5 is and why I bought it. A nimble hybrid capable of multiple missions very quickly and easily. Finally, while the open right side strap is a great idea, making the original ergonomics of the grip available to you even inside the cage, it doesn't work that well from my hand. Though, as always, your mileage may vary, and that's fine. You can, in fact, argue that when you get to the point that you really need the cage, you're into full shooting days and are not going to use the GH5 as anything other than a pure video camera, which I think is actually quite reasonable as an assumption for some number of folks, though again, not me. Okay, next. Once we secured the GH5 inside the cage, and the reason why you don't see it is because I'm shooting with it, we attached the Gradical HD via a $332 Zacuto Access Mini EVF mount, while we attached the Atomos using a $185 6-inch Z American articulating arm and an $87 Zycro mount 3. We'll hold the Atomos aside for separate reviews, so for now let's first talk about the Gradical. It's brilliant, but it's not small and it's not inexpensive. In every incarnation, the Eye, which is 1950 with that beautiful OLED display, a pile of assists, the smallest form factor and best industrial design of the 3 of them, though requiring external power and supporting SDI only. The Gradical HD, $1,900, pretty much the same. It's the same OLED EVF feature set, but capable of running without external power through an onboard single Canon LPE6 style battery and offering both SDI and HDMI. And the X1650, a bare-bone version of the HD, which can be brought to parity by buying tools like peeking individually online. The Gradical is just a killer EVF. From the screen to the eye cup, the diopter, the switchgear, the Gradical lineup just oozes quality. It's a profoundly different level of gear than the Z-Finder I bought years ago for my Canon 5D Mark II. Now, given the GH5's many built-in assists, I might just opt to save some bucks and take the X. But you'll really want to tap into a Cine-style battery. As I said, it's the only option for the Eye. And you want to plug in the Atomos too, even with 2 batteries now, perhaps even the GH5 with a dummy battery adapter, because these things eat batteries like Pez. Now, also, each of them is about as big as a GH5, and as you just heard, each of them costs about as much as a GH5. Still, for a moment, let's forget about price and size. As I told you, that third challenge is the sticky wicket, and instead, just marvel at how much easier it suddenly becomes to see what you're doing in bright daylight at any angle. I mean, if you can justify it, this really is the bomb. Let's move on to how we got the battery on board and tie all the pieces together. For that, we took the $615 VCT Pro base plate, which, as an update, addresses just about every one of the nits I had with the first one. Added a VCT Pro tripod dock for $145 to give us a quick release capability between the cage and the loaded up base plate. Added a $166 Swiss vertical plate on the rear set of rods. Added a $95 Swit battery plate adapter and attached up there a $608 Anton Bauer Cine 150, which is a lot bigger than this one here. Wow. It all worked beautifully. Except for the two little pieces sticking out of the Zacuto mount that are supposed to prevent twisting. They didn't, at least not on the Atomos, and did not have the Zacuto feel. Then again, the piece I really wanted, a $147 dedicated Inferno mount kit for the cage, wasn't available for review at the time. It looks like a brilliant little piece of kit, though it would prevent you from using that optional audio unit. When you add it all up, including the Cartoni 8 SDS carbon fiber tripod we took with us, separate report, which I'll send the links out for, we wrapped about $7,000 and 26 pounds of functionality around a $2,000 camera, almost half of it from Zacuto alone, which begs the question, why the heck would we do that? Well, other than the review itself, I can think of precisely 3 reasons. 1, the GH5 was what brung you to the dance. What got you to this gig. It gives you all you need. You like the way it works. You're ready to move up to the next level as a camera op or filmmaker without switching cameras. You want to be able to see in bright daylight from any angle with minimum fuss. And you can afford peace of mind. 2, the GH5 is what brung you to the dance. It gives you all you need. You like the way it works. You get to specify what to rent for the shoot. You want to be able to see in bright daylight from any angle with minimal fuss. And someone else can pay for your peace of mind. Lastly, the GH5 is what brung you to the dance, but you're leaving with someone else. You've moved on to a significantly better camera, which will definitely be much bigger and much more expensive, and want just about the best there is either as an owner-operator or operator specifier, because you want to be able to see in bright daylight from any angle with minimal fuss, and you insist on peace of mind. Those are the legitimate reasons. Now, in the end, I don't think it's exactly an earth-shattering conclusion to say that Zacuto gear makes more sense the farther up the production food chain you go. If I were kitting out an FS7 class machine, the VCT Pro baseplate and system around it would be my first port of call, full stop. If I wanted to use one EVF across multiple machines of that caliber, some flavor of Gradical would be my first port of call as well. I would ask Zacuto to do a version 4 of the Zacuto mount in any event, though, which improves upon those 2 little L brackets, which in theory prevent a monitor recorder from twisting. On the other hand, given my style, my budget, my subjects, and my business model, in other words, given where I am in the food chain, Plankton, I wish, 1, someone would come up with a non-denominational, like a Visoflex-like and priced tiltable EVF that I could attach directly to my GH5's hot shoe and draw off the GH5's battery, the same way Sony's multi-interface shoe on my A6300 feeds and communicates with the UWP D11 wireless lab that I'm using right now. I think Zacuto is perfectly positioned to do a half-pint Gradical, but what the heck do I know? I don't even know if the market for it exists or if it consists of precisely one person, me. 2, I wish Zacuto offered a version of their cage with a built-in, internal to the cage QR Arca Swiss plate, eliminated the 2nd and 3rd lockdown points so that I could leave my strap lugs and Peak Design anchor links in place, and make even better use of the existing GH5 grip and top buttons. In the meantime, I'm likely to stay lean, hungry, and cranky. For those of you a little bit higher up than Plankton, but committed to the GH5, what's clear is that the Zacuto GH5 cage gives you a foundation you can build upon to squeeze every ounce of capability from your GH5 as your skill and ambition grow, without having to throw it all away and start over with an FS5, FS7, C100, 200, 300, 400, Ursa Mini Pro 4 6K, or the EVA 1, and never have to worry that it will fail you. So that's that. If you got a GH5 and you've kitted it out, I'd be really interested to learn what you've chosen and why, along with what kind of projects you're doing. And I'd really like to know if I'm the only one who would like a baby graticle. If a really high quality, small, tiltable EVF for your hybrid camera were available from Zacuto, or anyone else for that matter, say for the same $500 or $600 as the VisoFlex, would you buy it? I mean, I know I'm often a statistical outlier, and I know the small HD focus is a great answer for some of you. But I'd love to get your take. I think that you, our YouTube audience, is exceptional that way, and it's a joy to learn from you. Finally, if you like what you've seen here today, please give a thumbs up, subscribe, join the conversation below, share, add to a playlist, and consider supporting our work by using our no-cost-to-you affiliate links, which now work in over half a dozen countries, or even making a contribution directly via the PayPal link below. As always, we thank you for it. You guys are amazing. For Three Blind Men and an Elephant, I'm Hugh Brownstone. See you next time.